what happened was I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask Ben Chestnut, and this was offline. What do you say when you don't want a reporter to report? This was off the record. This was off the record. We're on the phone. I'm like, I'm just gonna ask Ben Chestnut. Fuck it. And you're like, no, like, you could say like, and I'm like, sent. It's gone. I chestnutted it. It's a nutmeg. It's gone. Welcome back to the Smart Nonsense Podcast, where we talk about entrepreneurship, self-development, challenging norms. Pop's in the OG studio. I'm God knows where, but I got a greasy camera. Let me tell you why I had to come back in here, Pop. There's this funny thing happening in podcast land. Hold on, I gotta just clean that off right there. Where now when we record podcasts, we need to like prove to the other that. Oh, the camera's going. We have to prove to the other person that we're hype enough for the podcast. So before the podcast is like a competition to like contain energy. Anyway, I came back in here. My headphones weren't plugged in.
Hey, listen here. This is gonna be a fantastic. This might be one of my favorite episodes. My brain don't work too good. That's a danger.
How about that?
I'm manifesting it. Ow, dude, my fucking lip. I've bitten my lip like 5 times eating grapes and like little berries. So it's a negative feedback loop where I bit it once and then it got fatter and then I keep biting it because it's even bigger and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and it's like black and blue and it's fucking.
I have another negative feedback loop problem, Pop. That's disgusting. Pop.
Hey, don't watch this on YouTube.
Don't. You don't want to see this. Look. Oh God, I look terrible. Pop. Wait. Oh, I heard this funny thing. Go follow us on Instagram. If you're not, it's because you think we're ugly. There's the slow wit. Hey, why are you in Chicago?
Smart.nonsense. I don't want to, like, I'm actively concerned of losing people because I'm so excited about this podcast because I've been texting you. Belky, I solved it. It's solved.
Hey, you know what's not solved? T-Mobile Tony's Wi-Fi from my studio in Chicago.
Is it still bad?
It's laggy. You've been better. It's free Wi-Fi. What can you expect? So we're here to do like the Smart Nonsense Rewind, the year in review 2021.
No, that's later. That's not this episode.
They're not smashed together?
No, dude. This is a different episode. It's gotta be a two-banger.
Oh!
I can't even talk. My lip hurts.
Wait, that's hilarious. I thought I was here for a different reason.
No. First, we got to update them on this past weekend. There's so much in it that it deserves its own podcast.
That's fair. I thought we would do the rewind, and then that would culminate with, like, this greater purpose in life.
Here's the reason why. This is too granular. The stuff I want to talk about is kind of granular, but it solves a problem we've been facing. And that problem we'll talk about in the next one that we're fixing on a global scale. That's the exciting one. But this one's like nitty-gritty business. The next one is like visionary stuff and what has Smart Nonsense been over the last year. Because it came from nothing to something great. But this one is like, let's crack the code on this business model. What is the business model that is going to make our dreams come true? How about that? That sounds...
Before they know our dreams? Does that work in your head?
Well, here's what's going to happen. I make the rules around here. I forget where we left off last podcast, but it wasn't where we are now. That's all I know. It was far away. I think we still had Clip Media as a separate company. I don't know. We don't review the tapes.
Yeah, no.
All I know is we recorded that like a week and a half ago, and so much has changed. Basically, I had this revelation. Was it Friday night?
Can we give them a little bit of small talk? I want to know why you're in Chicago. And then I'll hear all about your revelation.
Oh!
Did it work?
Dude, no, dude. Wait, where'd you go? Hold on, I want you to come back.
I'm here.
Hey, listen. Okay, I'm in Chicago. Why am I in Chicago? I forgot about this. Why am I fucking here? Okay. So I'm going to Brazil.
Hotboxing this phone booth, by the way. Absolutely hotboxing.
A little saunita. Always have full. Yes, dude.
My feet and my farts.
Okay. You don't shower anymore, huh? So tomorrow.
No, I do every day, just at night.
I'm in Chicago right now. Tomorrow at 8 p.m., I am slated to leave from Miami on a direct flight to Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. Rio de Janeiro?
Rio de
Janeiro.
Rio de Janeiro.
Okay, I'm supposed to go there. And my mom, she was in Miami like a week ago, and I gave her a lot of my stuff. Because basically I'm traveling with my backpack and a small bag that Henry gifted me. One of my favorite gifts of all time. Thank you, Henry, for that.
You need to get it monogrammed.
I do. And I live right next to a mall that can do it. Well, I live, whatever. But, okay. So my mom, I give her a lot of my stuff because I don't want to bring it to South America, and I might be down there for like a month or so. She leaves, and a couple days ago, she calls me, and she's like, Dylan, are you excited about the trip? I'm like, of course I'm excited, Mom. We're having a great conversation, as we always do. That's sarcasm. We don't tend to have much in terms of conversations. But partly what I don't like about her is she coddles me. She coddles me a lot. Here, though,
thank God, foreshadow.
In the coddling, she's like, hey, Dylan, you're excited about it. You got your passport, right? I'm like, Mom, of course I have my passport.
Yes,
hang
Mom. Of course I have my passport.
Why wouldn't I? And I'm like, I better have my fucking passport. Because here's the thing. I don't know. I went to Miami, and I went there originally with a friend from Chicago with the idea of staying down there a month in a nice place. When we got down there, we're like, wow, this is really nice. We really like it here. Let's stay another month. Then from there, we also my family decided to go to Brazil for the holidays. And I'm like, oh, I guess I'm going to go straight from Miami to Brazil because they're direct flights. Why go back to Chicago? And then also I might I'm going to Ecuador after. So I have a lot riding on this. I have a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of people waiting for me. Actually, Matt, the person who I'm in Miami with, he's like, yeah, fuck it, I'll go to Ecuador with you. And so he's going. But he's like, dude, if you don't have your fucking passport, I'm going to go alone. I don't speak Spanish. I'm going there and I'm going to live with your girlfriend. Like, what the fuck is that? I just given up. I call her my girlfriend now. I don't know what we are. But
I was just going to gloss over that.
Yeah.
That's breaking news, folks. Keep ripping.
No.
Yes, dude. Life rips.
What's funny in Spanish?
Rip.
In Spanish, they call them culos. It's
culos.
It basically means fuck buddies. But
nice. What about cruise ship Spanish?
Oh no! Hey, we don't get into that.
Oh, crucero.
Well, I made that up. That was me, and that's ruined a lot of.
Keep going.
Our
Keep ripping. Keep ripping.
Okay, so basically, I'm like, of course, Mom. I hang up. I look. I'm like, I better have it. I'm going through my bags. I only have a couple bags, so it's like, if it's not there, I don't know where the fuck it is. I can't find it, and I call my mom back, and I'm like, hey, Mom. Funny thing, I don't have it.
This isn't the first time you've done this. Let me say that. I've heard about a missing passport. You also missed a flight in Argentina and called your mom crying for a similar reason.
Right, I kind of have PTSD. And that was, like, this flight to, it's one way, but it's to Rio, and it's like $1,500. Or more, actually, because I got, like, premium economy or, like, some business. I don't know what the fuck I got, but it was something nice. So a lot riding on this, plus another, like, $2,000 worth of flights and hotels. So a lot. I can't find it. I'm like, Mom, that suitcase I gave you, would it happen to be in that? She's like, no. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Because I came down to Miami. A smart person would be like, hey, you go to Miami, you should bring your passport. Because you're traveling and you often need it. Especially, like, I went to Puerto Rico. Luckily, that was U.S. territory, so I didn't even, like, think about a passport being a thing, but I almost went to Mexico, and I would have been fucked. And I don't know, a lot of stupid things. So, point being, I'm like, the only place it could be, because it's not in Miami, it's not in Rhode Island, it's got to be in Chicago. or I lost it. I brought it down here and I was traveling and I lost it. So that's why I'm here in the studio in Chicago with my stuff.
Overnight.
I have one box, and in that box is a backpack. And if that backpack, this here backpack.
You're doing it live on the pod?
Doing it live on the podcast.
Oh!
If it does not have my passport, we are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna lose if your passport's not in there. You're gonna be scattered. You're not gonna get the business plan out. We're not gonna do the full rewind.
You don't realize there's a lot on the line right now.
Your relationship with your mother, your relationship with your girlfriend, your relationship with your roommate, your relationship with your dad and your family. And you're doing it live on the pod.
Everything I know and own. Okay. There are two possible pockets that it's in. My heart's beating. My heart's beating right now.
Before I was nervous. Gonna do this?
This is a Schrodinger's cat. It's like it's either in there or it isn't, or I don't know.
It is both in there and not. So.
Right. How about that?
Wow.
I'll take 50%. Hey, why do passports have to be physical? What the fuck is that?
That's a good question. I'm thinking of another problem, Pop. There's also a Schrodinger that it has expired and you don't know it. Right?
Hey. Hey, one problem at a time. How about that?
Okay.
All right. So it's either in this here pocket or there's an interior pocket where it may or may not be. We'll check the first one. Oh, dude, I'm nervous. This bag's really light. I know passports don't weigh much.
This bag's light.
Oh, dude, this is not good. This is not good. We are 0 for 1. I do have one 500 peso from the time I went to Argentina.
Hold on. Before we go on,
Colombia.
Don't you wear that little fanny pack that blocks security radars and stuff?
No, I stopped doing that. It's fucking stupid. I look dumb. And it made my tummy sweat.
Roll the B-roll.
Okay, I'm kind of nervous now.
I had a video of you with that. We'll roll the B-roll of your fanny pack. You're nervous. I'm nervous. The viewer must be nervous.
Okay. All right. There's only one place it can be.
No, it's got to be in other places too, if not here.
Dad, I got it! Yes! Oh, let's go! He's a citizen. Let's see.
Yes, dude. Life rips.
Life fucking rips, dude. Oh, let's see if it's expired. Oh, I look really young. This isn't good for the Oh, wait, I should probably block out some of these numbers, huh?
Yeah, just tell us. Just tell us.
No, I look good in it. I liked my photo of me when I was like 16.
But when is it? 2024?
2024, baby.
Yes, dude.
Okay.
Yes.
My family's been texting me. They're like, hey, what are the updates on Rio, on Brazil? And I haven't been responding because I'm scared. I'm like, I don't want to ruin it for them. But
you're going. But it's funny because as you're doing this overnight, I'm like, okay, Pop, but now you also got to get back to Miami. And like, it's December in Chicago. Like, you know, it's not uncommon for you to have a snowstorm and knock it out. And you're like, oh, fuck, man. Just the
dude.
Complexity. That's
that
your
would
life.
be miserable. Okay,
the simplest, most complex life.
And I found 500 pesos, Colombian pesos. So it's a double win.
Hey,
okay,
I'm gonna
well,
go
that's
to
the
Las
reason I'm here.
Vegas with 500 pesos and put it on black for you.
Hey, I like the spontaneity that you're embracing. That's really good.
Well, let me say, we weren't going to be able to make it to Las Vegas before the end of the year, but I was like, I would like to drive through. Bruno Mars has a residency at like the Dolby Theater in Las Vegas. I was like, I would like to go see him. I love watching him in concert. I told Athena we'd go see him someday, but it wasn't going to work out. And then I was like, and he's got this new band, Silk Sonic, so I don't know if he's going to perform really as himself anymore. So anyway, I cashed in a lot of points to get a couple flights from LA to Las Vegas.
Hey, use the breadwinner.
Hotel points, breadwinner, and she does. I still gotta get tickets. They're expensive. It's gonna be a game time decision. Try and get them when the scalpers are like lowering prices right before the show. We got Friday and Saturday to get them, so we'll see.
Huh.
How about that?
Huh. It's a game time decision. Yeah, that was like I wanted to go to Ecuador, but then I realized to do it, Galapagos, but to do it right, you need to spend like 10 grand on cruises, and I can't do that. So
someday.
Okay, what are we going to talk about? Basically, I think I don't know where we left off last time with the business, but I think it was something where Clipped Media is separate than Clipped the marketplace. We wanted to build both of them. Ideally hire a CEO for Clipped Media because we don't like managing clients. It kind of sucks. So we'd have Jack, Henry's brother, ideally come in after he's done caring for his newborn and his other 2 children and his wife and his full-ass family.
His dog.
Once he's done with that and his current company, then he could come run that. But us in the meantime, we would kind of have to juggle both. And we're trying to create this unicorn company. So it's a lot. And I've been scared. I didn't like it. Then, I guess it was only like one code cracking to...
So,
I thought it was like a sequence of events. It's kind of just like one
I don't know when we came
out.
on here. We came on here and we talked about game day, right? You had this kind of...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that. So you had this moment in the company just like last Thursday, and you're like, why are 50 of us here? And this is all... You've always been against this, but it like came to a head on Thursday, and then you just got wired. You're like, I got to figure this out.
I freaked out because I was in this room. It was a 4-person Zoom with 3 people I've never talked to one-on-one. I don't really know them. Don't know half of them. Never heard them speak. It was the first time I was like, oh my God. It was overwhelming. I didn't think they wanted to be there. I didn't want to be there. It was like, what the fuck's going on? I don't want to run a big company. I had this whole existential crisis.
And the team's dope and A+. This is just like, it was just a rude awakening. You're like, I no longer know the people coming into this company. And that's not something you ever wanted.
And my superpower isn't running a 50, 100, 200 person company. I don't really want to do that. It just kind of happened. It literally we just showed up to a Zoom and it's like, oh, well, there are a couple pages of people. We're like, what the hell is this? So I've just been in this turmoil of like, let's figure this thing out. I don't want to do this. I want to do Clipped the marketplace. That's a lot more exciting. We just build a platform and then everyone comes, but we don't have to have like one-on-one calls with them. We don't have to have all this like company stuff. We're talking about, oh, should you be employees? And we're like, do we want to give them benefits? Do we want to basically take on all the government burden of the Philippines to have them as proper employees of our company? It's like, no, we can't do that. It's just too much. And again, we don't want to run a company like that. So I've just been cooking in the back of my head. Like this idea is brewing. How do we either just do marketplace and fucking like sell Clip Media, Smart Nonsense Media essentially, or is there something that can make both work at the same time? I wish I had my train of thought from, because we have those messages.
Yeah. Like you were up all night that night.
Like we have so many messages.
We went over them. We did an emergency pod the next morning. You were like, we're shutting down Clipped Media. This is all the marketplace. We recorded that.
Fuck yeah.
On Friday.
Glad we reviewed these. Okay.
How about that?
All right. Beautiful. We solved it.
That's how blurry this is, by the way. Like when you're sprinting, it's just like, what did I say? What was my train of thought? What was the business 2 days ago? I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. It changed 10 hours ago when I was on my flight. It's like, it's a different...
And lo and behold, viewer, I do not know.
I know, that's the beauty. A lot of surprises coming on this.
I know as little as you.
Okay, so basically we're going to just hire out our team, essentially. Our job is just, we have the best filter ever for the video editors in this case, but eventually more than that, ideally. But right now it's like, we know video editing, animation, we can screen all these people and then automatically one-click match you like it's Uber. Oh yeah, we did talk about that. So there's no thought on your side. It's just, here's your animator, rip. That's it. So we did it in sort of this subscription model that basically kept our current clients in the same situation, like the prices are not changing, and then it allows us to take new people on much more easily because it's just credit card. The signups, like basically we're like paying weekly, it's like quoted weekly, but you're paying either monthly or 6 months, like semi-annually. So it was pretty good. And we figured out, like, we had this crazy... I've just been up. I don't think we talked about my weekend at all because we haven't shot a podcast, obviously. But we shot it sometime that week, and then my brain's still been going. And I'm like, fuck, there's so many brain blasts, dude. This makes me sad because it's so nice.
There's so many brain blasts.
I've slept not many hours in the last 5 days, like 20.
Okay, you had this first major brain blast to get us to clipped Just the Marketplace, and we recorded that.
Okay.
And then you were up that night too.
Oh, I was up making the Excel sheet.
Oh, you were doing all the modeling, right? And I was horseback riding all day, right?
Right.
How about that?
So this is what happened, and I don't really want to show the model because it has like all of our company's financials, but it's basically I channeled my inner college student, my like Engine 1010, which is our entrepreneurship class. We had to model $100 million business. So I'm like, oh, we can do that. And the beauty of everything is like start with the back of the envelope math. Make sure that makes sense, which I just want to make sure whatever price we have, the unit economics, aka one person coming in, hiring one person, do we make money off that? If we don't, scaling it is going to fucking explode everything. So don't scale a business model that sucks. Unless you're Uber and at scale, you're going to be able to like change your economics. In our case, we're not going to really change economics much. So I wanted to create the model, like factor in all the bonuses we're thinking about giving them, all the overhead that we might have with software, with our other sort of A team that we're keeping for a different purpose. Just figure out, are we making money on every order? Because if we're not, what the fuck are we doing? Like, we need to change everything.
I think most of what we do is learn by doing. This seems to me like the most valuable thing you actually learned in business school. It's just this framework,
business school.
Just do back of the envelope math, right? I never would have thought to work out a model like this, and you showed it to me, and it blew my mind.
That's the beauty of it. Is okay. What's the value of education? You're kind of learning all this shit that's without the application, it doesn't make sense. But why I liked our entrepreneurship class, even though they often get a lot of shit, is like you have to build a company that makes $100 million in revenue, aka $1 billion company, by year 5. Figure it out. And in that, because you're kind of invested in the project, even though there's no like actual money skin in the game, which now we do have it, so it's even more enticing. But you have to figure out the assumptions. Like if you're doing this model that, like, we're assuming a lot of things. We're assuming, oh, we're going to have this many customers, or we're assuming that this is going to be the average bonus that a person gets. Like just a million different assumptions. So we want to bake those in because we can adjust those and see how it affects the model because so much is dependent on it.
And what's cool is you can adjust them to find the breaking point so we know where we should never go, right? You can see if we only have 8 clients, for instance, these unit economics aren't going to work and they're not going to work at scale. So we need to make sure we have double, like whatever it is. It's just interesting because you can see where the model breaks.
It's beautiful because I was playing around with like, how much should we bonus? And I'm like, if we bonus this much, we're not going to make money. So we had to bonus a little bit less. But what if we increase salaries over here, reduce the bonus? And you can just see how it all plays out. And now this helps you make a better decision when you come to the team and you're like, hey, this is what we're going to do. And we're confident, we're certain that we're going to make money. Assuming that our assumptions are roughly ballpark accurate. You want to bake in like some margin of safety.
And then you can get even quicker decisions because the team will be like, well, what if you paid us? Well, we want to be paid double that. It's like, okay, quick, pop it into the Excel model. Yeah, that'll still work. Okay, let's go. Margins are good. It's like, it's so good.
I'm like, whoever the fuck thought of Excel, because it is kind of like, who would think to put a bunch of blocks and the blocks kind of like mathematically link? It's brilliant. I never appreciated it, but it makes me think all the shit we've done in school where when you don't have that skin in the game, a purpose for doing it, it just seems like busy work. But now I'm up till 6 a.m., 9 a.m. making these Excel sheets. Literally, like, I didn't sleep. I was just like, this is so much fun. I'm testing everything. Like, any hypothesis you have an immediate answer.
Yeah,
like,
it's cool.
What if we had 2,000 customers? Oh, we're $1 billion company. That's awesome.
Right. And then what we did is you ran it by me, and we ran the, like, what is our North Star? What do we need to hit to be happy or to liquidate or like whatever that is? And we're like, oh, it's 2,000 customers. We can get 2,000 customers.
Well, the coolest thing is like right now, if we just reshifted our team from our current model to this model, I wanted to see how does that play out. Are we still profitable? And I'm like, oh, the economics are essentially the same. So I'm like, okay, that's beautiful.
But we have more cash flow. For instance, you would see a huge cash infusion.
Right. So
which is interesting.
It's just been awesome. I love it, and I've just been hooked on it. So I basically had like 3 all-nighters back to back to back, and then
we got
one of the all-nighters.
And I don't know if that's in this episode or the next episode, but stick around.
No, it's gonna be this one. Okay,
stick around.
I guess there's not much left before I get into this. There's this podcast. I forget who sent. Maybe it was my dad that sent me it.
Yes, dude.
Slick Rick with the podcast. Yes. Tim Ferriss plus Andrew Chen. Andrew Chen is a A16Z Andreessen Horowitz venture capitalist, and he worked at Uber. Uber worked on AngelList stuff. He worked on basically a lot of these network-based companies. So there's this network effect where the more people you have, the more valuable the network. And it's usually like, people always thought it was, what the fuck, who's the guy's name? I forget, but basically like, if you have 4 people, it's the square of whatever you have. That's what everyone thinks
Metcalfe's law.
Metcalfe's law.
Hey, turns out it's not true. How about that?
Not quite true, but it's still, the more people you have in general, the more valuable it is. I haven't even finished the book.
Yes, but also, the reason it's not true is the less people you have, also the more self-destructive it is.
Right, you got to cross the threshold.
Yeah.
There's a critical number that you got to get to.
By the way, we're talking about Andrew Chen's book, The Cold Start Problem, about building networks. Really interesting so far.
Sounds like a terrible title. I'm like, how... Everything is like, speak caveman. I'm like, the cold start problem, that... I don't know, maybe it's okay. Because people are like, cars, cold start. But I start getting into it, and it's beautiful because we're essentially creating a marketplace which is dependent on network effects. To really have a moat, to really succeed, we need a critical mass. And his whole thing is like, get to the atomic number of people you need in the network. So we're right now...
And that's the atomic number is the smallest network possible.
Right. Like, our idea is if someone comes to us, like, for example, we're already pitching Clipped, the marketplace, and it's already working. So it's just Clipped. We're already pitching Clipped, and it's working with our current model. But it's like, if a person comes in, they need to have an animator or an editor like that. Whereas if we're inundated right now, we have a wait list, we can't do that. That's the problem. You need enough people on the marketplace, on the supply side, in our case, to make it function well. Otherwise, we're going to lose customers like crazy. So I'm just on the plane. I love planes. Like, I have 2 amazing, like, where I think best is just at 4 a.m. and on 3-hour flights. It's just like me.
And I think that's common. Noah Kagan said a similar thing. He's just like, he's flight
Well, no
guy.
Distractions. Zero distractions. That's why. It's just complete
Well,
flow
you know
state.
what that means is we should be better at buffering ourselves. Like, you should be able to be on an airplane flight every day, essentially. Phone away, notifications off, deep work, one thing, and you'll get into flow. It's just a beautiful forcing function.
I know. That's why I was talking to another client, and he's like, I have a family, but I just wake up at 4 a.m. every day, and it's the best time ever because I'm just all alone. I'm just thinking, I'm working. And that's me, just the reverse for it.
You know what's crazy, too, is right before that flight, you were like, wow, I got to the airport 4 hours early, and I did absolutely nothing. You were just like, you were being pulled in like a million directions. You're like, I didn't do anything today. We're not going to get this memo out. And then you get on the plane, and it's like...
That's so interesting. Yeah, I was just dealing with like stupid small stuff all day, and I'm like, this isn't like adding to this unicorn that we're trying to create. So one of the things, I think before I got on the plane, which I almost missed because I get there 4 hours early and miss the plane, like that'd be the dumbest shit. I'd be so angry. But that's just my life. Like, obviously I have my passport now. Like, that's how stupid I am. But you texted me, you're like, or we were talking on the phone, you're like, oh, I changed, I looked at the pricing. When we charge monthly, it's like $4,000. Like, that's a lot. It's kind of intimidating. I'm like, you're right. That is an issue. Maybe we should go weekly. And then I'm like, weekly kind of sucks, because then you said something like, oh, what if they come in, they just sign up for a week and then cancel? Like, they just wanted one video.
Or
it's kind of
on our end, they come in for a week and the project has like more startup costs and they don't really like get doing anything for
Right. Then we're losing
9
money
days.
on unit economics, and we're gonna lose customers,
and they're not going to be happy.
Right. So it's
But
not
also,
good.
if they come in weekly, they can cancel weekly,
Right.
because we have this cancel anytime thing. So
And there's Andrew Gazdecki. He says if you're a bootstrap company, which we are. Oh, I didn't even think. Did you talk about the LLC at all? I think we did. I forget. But you hit MailChimp founder, and he's like, become an LLC.
was that in the last podcast, or was that?
I don't
after
know
the
anymore,
last
dude.
podcast?
I don't know anymore.
I can find out really quick. Wait, that's so. I feel like we would have talked about it because I would have made this point. Like, you can talk to anybody, but I don't remember doing that.
Oh yeah.
Friday at 12. No, we logged off the podcast. I went on Twitter for the first time that day.
Oh, we were saying you're gonna hit him up.
I was like, oh, he did respond. So, Jesus. We're like, MailChimp is identical to what we want to build. So can we quit fucking around and build the thing
how
and
is
just
it
do what they
identical?
did? They were a web agency that spun off a product. I know the two founders of MailChimp own the whole thing.
Right.
No
They're
one had stock
bootstrapped, and they never
options.
gave out
They're
equity.
bootstrapped, right? And then people were furious when they sold to Intuit because employees didn't have stock options. But I do believe there was some profit sharing along the way. So I don't think that's the full story. But anyway, I say, hi, Ben Chestnut. Was MailChimp an LLC or a C Corp or other? Whatever your answer is whatever my company will be. Thank you. And he responded, which I guess was after the podcast. When we got started, we were too busy working and too broke to hire lawyers, so we went online and filed as LLC. And I saw that, and I'm like, yeah, we're way too busy to be like beating around the bush with this. He said it's fast, easy, and something you can change later if you want. I'm like, done. We're an LLC.
Right.
All right, let's go.
The reason why I was so concerned is I never thought I don't really want to raise money ever. Like, I like that it's just us. If we're on the same page, we just rip. I don't like other cooks in the kitchen. That's one of our big pet peeves. So keep them away.
I got
We don't need
something
the
on
money.
that for next podcast, all right? We'll talk
Okay.
about that next podcast.
Keep pushing ahead.
Why'd your Logitech Brio keep going out of focus?
I don't know, my fucking hair.
No, I was talking about bootstrapping and raising money on some of my learnings from this year. Next podcast.
Okay. So why did I bring that up? Oh, it was okay. Andrew Gazdecki. He's a bootstrap founder, and he's like, hey, if you're not gonna raise money, like, don't raise money from angels or investors. It's a lot better to just raise money from customers. How do you do that? Charge annually, or in our case, semi-annually, which is good enough. Because it's kind of, if we charge annually, it'd be a fuckload of money, and then it's a pretty big decision. We don't necessarily want that.
Pre-orders too are the same same thing. I've done that before. It's like, if you're launching a product, if you do pre-orders, you can use that pre-order money to actually fund your project if it's successful.
What is
Sneaky.
Oh, did you ever Teespring, a Brown company? I remember Entrepreneurship. They came and spoke. They were essentially like, before you create, like, say, Smart Nonsense merch, like a bunch of T-shirts, put it up, put just mock-ups up, and then get pre-orders. And we're only gonna create them when we get like 100 pre-orders or whatever. That way you don't like create a shitty shirt that no one buys, and you just waste all this money.
And you can always refund all the credit cards and say, this just didn't work out. Sorry.
Right.
Unless you get too deep like Theranos, then be careful.
Dude, there's so much I want to talk about because there's Mark too. I don't.
Hey, we got all day. Yes,
Okay.
dude.
Okay.
We got all our
I'll get
calls
into Mark really
canceled.
quick. But this is a big thing because I have this friend, and I talked to him yesterday, and he worked at the dating company with me, and he sees all our stuff, and he's like, guys, you're so inspiring. Like, I want to do what you're doing, but like, can I have some advice? Like, I just love to be in your circle more. And I'm like, all right, what are you thinking about working on? He's like, well, for the last 6 months, I've had this idea to do like this linking between like millionaires and college students and kind of this mentorship program. I'm like, all right, that's a shitty idea, but beyond that, I didn't, whatever. Beyond that, like,
fine.
What have you? Well, he's like, college students don't have money. Like, why don't go at college students? It's a bad market.
Maybe, but I think what you're about to say is what matters.
Well, I'm like, okay, this is my opinion, right? I think it's a bad idea. Here's why. Here's what I would do instead, which I kind of liked, actually. It's like, go to the celebrities, like, because people don't care about Millionaire Next Door. They're often not that interesting. But if it's Chamath, and you're like, Chamath, I have 20 Q&As. Let's do it Cameo style, where you just record back-to-back 1-minute little responses. We're going to put it up on a library, and that's just like Chamath's master advice thing, and then people subscription. I don't know. But basically throwing out ideas. And I'm like, well, first, this is my idea, but I would test it because I'm probably wrong. You're probably wrong. But what have you done to test it? And he's like,
that's the important part.
Right.
Right. His idea doesn't matter. Your idea doesn't matter. It's what have you done to test either of them?
And he tells me, he's like, well, about 6 months ago, I went on Upwork and I found this website developer. I'm like, hey, I have this idea. Can you make the website so that we can sell it to people? And he's just been really shitty. And it's like, we originally paid him by the hour and he was going really slow. And then we tried to switch to project, but he's just like still really bad. And it's like, it's just been a headache and a half. I'm like, so you're telling me, Mark, you've had this idea for 6 months. And you have not tested a single thing other than the fact that you suck at hiring on Upwork. Or hiring is hard. I shouldn't say you suck at hiring.
And you
hiring
can't get a website made. Right.
And he's like, you're right, dude. What the fuck? And I'm like, our whole edge, like the reason why, and I attribute this to you, Henry, because I would take too long and I'd probably just end up not doing things. I'm learning from you, which is fun. Because like I'm starting to do this, like we call it Ben Chestnutted or chest.
Oh, come on.
Wait. Megged? Nutmegged.
Chestnut, nutmeg. I don't know why.
Chest nutmegged. And then I just did megged, and now it's just megged.
Because what happened was I was like, you know what? I'm just going to ask Ben Chestnut. And this was offline. What do you say when you don't want a reporter to report? This was off the record. This was off the record. We're on the phone. I'm like, I'm just gonna ask Ben Chestnut. Fuck it. And you're like, no, like, you could say like, and I'm like, sent. It's gone. I chestnutted it. It's a nutmeg. It's gone. So go before you're ready.
So I learned that from you, and I'm kind of transitive property shifting it over to Mark. I'm like, dude, you got to test this immediately. Here's how you can test it. Go to the millionaire, pitch him on the idea, but like, he's not going to want the $20 from the college student.
This is funny, Pop, where it might look like I default to action in that sense. You were originally the person, early Dunbar, that was like, what have you done to test this? Why are you not this week matching up this friend with that friend?
Right.
So it's like, I default to action, yes, but I wasn't thinking small enough.
Right.
So I think when you put those two things together from us, it's dangerous.
Well, that's like me with the workout habits. It's like, okay, I want to get to this place where I'm fit. Most people go to the gym 2 times a week for an hour and a half, and they just burn themselves out. I'm like, what if I can just do 15 minutes a day, and like it's not that big of a deal? Like, that's what I got there. I learned it from Noah Kagan and Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss is everywhere. They had this video from like 5 years ago or something like that, maybe longer. And Noah Kagan's given advice, consulting all these entrepreneurs. And his whole thing is like, how do you make $1 today or $100 this weekend? How do you do that? And do that. Figure it out. Test it. Try and sell someone. And people, a lot better than like, for example, with Dunbar, people are like, oh, that's an awesome idea. Okay, but try and sell them on it. Like, get their money. If they're not willing to give you their money, it's not an awesome idea. It's a shit idea. And then change it.
In that case, if we couldn't get 2 friends to go to Starbucks together, what are we doing? The incentives don't work.
Right. So that's where it's like,
for a long time.
Getting back to the model, it's like we have all these assumptions. Let's test each assumption in the real world. And so that's helped us. I kind of gave him some ideas to test his stuff, and we're going to see. I was basically like, hey, you want to be with me? Because I know we're going to create $1 billion company. Like, that's awesome. I would want to be around us as well. I'm not going to want to be around you if you're all talk all the time. You're like, I'm going to build a website for 6 months. That's not fun to me. I want you to go out to the millionaire, talk to them, sell them on the idea. Just, if it doesn't work, text me what happens. You don't need to type a memo, just like, Dylan, I went out, talked to them, they don't want it. This is what I'm going to do instead.
Yeah, you're babysitting, you know? And I think it's this kind of real, recognized real. Like, just, I'm happy to talk to anyone all day long. Just like, show me that you're doing something.
Right. I don't want to waste my time and your time. Like, I saw you're taking notes. That's awesome. I'm taking notes too. But act on those notes. Because if you don't act on them, I'm never going to talk to you again. There's no point.
Yeah.
Why am I wasting my time? I could be building this insane company. So I told him that. We'll see if he texts back. I think a lot of people, I expect him not to. but maybe he's ambitious enough and will. I also have this thing. You know that bike? I texted you about the bike condom that you wrapped your bike, but not mine, and it's all dusty and gross.
Insert picture.
Yeah. I'm like, yo, Matt. Matt was like, yo, I can bring your bike to New York because I'm going to leave Chicago in a car, and I can bring it. I'm like, dude, just have it. But then I'm like, actually, I'm not trying to be like, I'm awesome, just giving things. But what I'm trying to say is I don't want to live with him partly because he's not ambitious enough. Like, I see him playing video games or like talking about stuff, but he's not reading books. He's not like involved in this ecosystem. And if I'm the average of the 5 people around me, I don't want him to be one of those people. I told him this because it's like radical honesty type stuff, along with the other reasons why I don't want to live with him. But I'm like, hey, take my bike, you play around with it, love it, but let's do something interesting. If in 3 months, or by the time I get to New York, if you don't do something, because he wants to be ambitious, he wants to not be a mediocre person, which I think most of us don't want to be. I'm like, let's figure out some challenge where in 3 months when I get to New York, if you haven't done it, then I get my bike back and I get free shipping, essentially. But if you've done it, keep the bike. It's a $2,000 bike. And
that's cool.
He's like, interesting. So I'm like, what's the most low friction thing he can do? Hey, create a podcast. If you get to episode 30, have the bike. It's yours.
Wow. That's rad.
And so he's figuring out what he wants to do. It's something with like getting better at talking to people. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but that's the sort of stuff. I'm like, I propose the test, do it or not. I would pass the test if it was me, and I'd have a free bike. But
yeah,
or I get free
and what
shipping.
You realize,
it's a win-win for me.
When you do podcast 1, you're like, oh, podcast 2 is not like Athena has been moseying for a while. Like, yeah, it's the cold start problem. Trying to figure out what to do. On Friday, we read all these books together, and on Friday it was like one thing day, and what she did was look at someone she wanted to hit up at this company she likes, Guayaki Yerba Mate, the drink that she loves, and craft a narrative and hit him with that. And we did, and it was great, and it was a good email. And it took her all afternoon. And it was funny, and I hope it works, but it might not, it probably won't, whatever. They might respond, they might not. But guess what happened after that? She got the bug. She's like, oh, I can do another one of these emails. Let me hit up this other company I like. And then Mischief rolls out this little fellowship thing yesterday, and she's like spitballing it. It's like, well, you just gotta start.
That's the thing. I think right now everyone looks to us and like, you're amazing. You have so much wisdom. Like, what can you teach me about what you do right now? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. We just got lucky. We got lucky because we acted on a lot of stuff and we saw the opportunity. And now I see my shit fucking going in and out. It doesn't matter. But we got lucky. So I can't like teach you what to do. Just like create a lot of commotion and like have that eye for when you can see an opportunity and just fucking act on it immediately. And it doesn't have to be crazy because he's talking like, oh, how would I get in touch with Chamath? I'm like, well, how did we? It's like, we're nobodies. What the fuck?
I emailed him. That's how. I emailed him. One line.
You can get on Twitter. You can like figure out how to create value, do it for them, and you just get your foot in the door. So I think I don't want to like stay on this too much, but it's like just fucking.
Wait, really quick. Here's something I forgot, and I want people to know it. When we did this email together to the company, she was asking if she could be an executive assistant in one line by the end, in kind of a joking way. And I thought that was good. Then I realized yesterday, what was I thinking? Why did I coach her to do that? Why make the ask? Because there's this other company she wants to reach out to, and she was going to pitch them this whole thing. I'm like, they don't care about that. Just give. And just send the email with a piece of information. Give them something. Don't ask for anything. And I wish if we could go back in time, she didn't ask necessarily for this executive assistant role. She just kind of got her name on their radar. Right. But you can only learn that by doing it. I only remembered that by seeing the next one.
Well, that's the
cause
blitz.
A commotion.
We effectively, when we blitzed all in, Jason was like, I want to hire you on the first thing. And be like, no, we got some more value coming your way. Like, we wouldn't ask. We're not like, hey, put it up. Like, you actually did a post like, oh, Chamath, you got to pay for clips if you want something. I was like, no, Belky, we don't. That's not, don't get there. We're not in that stage. Just give. And then if they want to work with you, they'll reach out because they see how it could connect.
So give.
So, okay. I don't think anything else.
A pod inside of a pod. So you're on the plane.
I'm on the plane, and I'm reading this book, and I'm thinking about that text you had of charging weekly and then getting fucked because someone just wants one video and they essentially like screw us, and that would be a big problem if everyone did it. And it made me also think to Sam Parr. I'm like, we pitched Sam like, hey dude, $500 an hour or something, or fucking an hour in a week for a video editor. He's like, amazing. I'm like, well, do you need someone full time? And he's like, no, I'm not really making videos very often right now. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting, because he kind of like fell off the map after that, which they often do. Like another person, Sean Puri, same thing. We texted him like, oh, this idea, and he's gone. ADHD. But I'm like, well, and I was thinking back because I've been doing some research now on like Fiverr. Fiverr was awesome because I went there. It was just, you buy one product. It's just there. I want to buy that. And you don't have to like subscribe like an Upwork. I'm like, maybe there's some way where we can do both. Oh fuck, no, that wasn't the sequence of events. Okay, sequence was this. I was thinking about incentives first because Andrew Chen, for some reason in the book, brought up incentives.
Wait. You cut out it. That wasn't the sequence of events.
I started thinking, I don't know what I just said. My brain's not working very well. But just thinking about incentives and team pay. For some reason, I started sketching. Actually, I might have it in my notebook. I started sketching like how much we're paying the team. Oh, I love looking back at my notes. And so I'm trying to like, I don't have access because I'm on a plane. I don't have access to the spreadsheet, but I'm just like literally back of envelope mathing. And one thing with the bonus structures from before, I was thinking like, hey, if I'm an animator on the team, we're effectively going to pay them their current salary plus a bonus when they're working with clients. I'm like, if I were them, I wouldn't want to work. Why the fuck would I take on a job unless we forced it on them?
Right. Like
it's like I'm making my current salary. I don't really care about the bonus. Let me just coast, like turn away, be like, oh, I'm not interested in that content. Just turn them away. And we don't want to be on the side of forcing them. Like the economics should be so awesome that people want to work on the projects. So I was trying to crack this code. I'm like, well, okay, right now it's like the bonus is worth maybe 20, 30% of their salary. Focus, Brio.
Focus.
So focus, execute. Inside joke with my mom. Maybe she'll hear this.
How about that? Inside joke with your mom on the pod. Those work really well. Just like our inside jokes with the audience. I'm sure that goes great.
Okay, well, the inside joke's kind of funny. Her ex-boyfriend is in this big family, and there are two brothers. They're like in their 50s. One of them's kind of successful one, and the other one's a degenerate. And the degenerate was like fucking something up. And so the successful one looks at him. He's like, John, focus, execute. And they're
brilliant.
both like 55 years old. And he's like, okay.
That's brilliant.
Okay. It's kind of like how I talk to Matt.
That's brilliant. Focus, execute. Get it together. You're 55. Come on.
Focus, execute. So I've just
that
been
was in
thinking
front of
like,
everyone?
Yeah, at like Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, brilliant.
5 years ago.
Fucking brilliant.
Okay, so I'm like, how do we get this so that they want to work with a new customer that comes in on this ongoing basis? What if it was more like 50-50? And I'm like working out the math. I'm like, oh, that gets into our concern where it's like, is that enough where they can live off of 50-50? Because they love job security. Like that's why they want company, because, oh, you're not going to get fired. You're going to get paid an expected amount. I'm like, well, let me do this thing that we like to do. It's like go to the extreme. What does the extreme look like where we don't pay them any salary? Like Uber doesn't pay their Uber drivers a salary. Rev, that's the transcription service, they don't do it. Almost no one does it. And that's how we're kind of in the company mindset if we're paying everyone a salary. So I was thinking like, oh my God, what if, like kind of in the economics of what we pay the animator, like we're essentially mentally, we're already giving them a set amount. So the amount that breaks down into the base pay, like we could just add to the potential pay. It's not really making sense, but like we can create a better offer by just getting rid of the base pay and making it so attractive to work with a client or a customer in this case. Okay. So my idea was like, let's just pay them a boatload of money when they're working with someone. Like before we had incentives like, oh, you get an extra bonus for 5-star review, you get an extra bonus if they renew, you get all these extra bonuses. Like our big thing is simplify. So how do we simplify that offer so it's literally a caveman could understand the incentive system? And Charlie Munger's always big on it. It's like, if you can work on incentives, only work on that, never anything else. I'm like, okay, how do we make this a no-brainer? We don't have to explain the whole system of how they're incentivized. So I'm like, if you're working with someone,
and then you have to track the whole system of how they're incentivized too, which is hard.
It's complicated, and that's what I think. Again, I mention Yuri all the time, but his whole thing is just like simplify, get the best offer possible, both for the customer, but also for the freelancer in our case, or the teammate, whatever you want to call them. Now they're the freelancer. So I'm like, let's just make it. They get paid a boatload of money when they're working with a client or customer. When they're not paid. That's it. So you want to work. Like you want to work because you're going to make a fuckload of money. That's enough of an incentive. If you don't have a customer, you're not paid. As simple as that. Now, I'm like, job security perspective. They're going to be scared. Because they're like, what if you guys get no customers? I'm like, that's a great point. Like this part is on us. But right now, with our current team, we have a wait list of 2 months. So we're like, you don't have to worry about demand. Demand is already there. You are going to have a customer, and we're going to pay you far more than you're making right now, which is far more than you could get anywhere else in the market. And guess what? The beauty of this is also, so just for economics, let's say, to keep it simple, basically like, if we pay them a lot more, like we don't have to worry about this base thing where people that aren't working also get a base. We pay them so much that narrows the gap between what the customer is paying and what they're receiving for working with them.
Okay.
So if the customer is paying $4,000 and we're paying them $3,000, well, they have no incentive to go work directly with the customer. Like that poaching problem we were concerned about, where they get off our platform. We pay them so much, there's not much of a discrepancy. So they're like, I wouldn't want to give up my clipped to work with them. Before we were doing it like you're paid base, and then when you work with a customer,
understand. But isn't, so 3,000 to 4,000 in non-US dollar terms, isn't that actually like an amount that's worth skirting the platform for in that example? Or you're saying the band
before
could be narrow enough.
It was less. It was like 2,000 to 4,000 or whatever the number.
Right.
I'm kind of like changing the numbers. But I'm saying
so
getting closer to what the customer pays, which is what this does, reduces the risk that they would go off platform. And then we had to like ban them, and it'd be a big problem. So our whole mentality was like, with Smart Nonsense in the past and now Clipped, we just pay you a boatload of money. Like, you're not employees, but we're going to pay you a boatload of money and make sure you're in demand. So part of me gets back to this question of job security, right?
Which is the reason you would stay on our platform, right? Because if they skirted the platform and they went to work with the Smart Nonsense podcast, well, they're assuming all the risk of the Smart Nonsense podcast now. There's no saying we're going to actually still be recording in 6 weeks.
Right.
So if Smart Nonsense comes through the platform and we shut down the podcast, well, Clipped will find you work with somebody else. It's that kind of job security.
Right.
You go directly to the customer. Now you bear the risk of the customer.
And also, the beauty of this, I'm thinking, is like, we have this issue of hiring. Like, how do we make this as attractive as possible? Now, if we put out job posts, we say, hey, we're paying you, you can earn up to $3,000 a month. Whatever that number is. I'm just using that. It's kind of arbitrary, but far more than before. Now we can attract a lot more people. It's still true. Like, hey, if you're working on the platform, you can make up to $3,000 an hour. Versus before, we had to kind of factor in the risk.
Easy, like, an hour?
Sorry. Oh, this is... Okay, no. This was the train of thought. Sorry. I'm fucking up everything. Like, I know the takeaways. I don't know how I arrived at them, but I'm realizing. Okay, I realized because it was talking about the risk. I realized if we're paying everyone $1,500 and we don't get any demand, we take on all that risk, it could destroy the company. It would... Like, we have such big overhead.
We'd be paying contractors to hang out with no work.
And no incentive to work because we're paying them so much. So that's originally how I got down this thought process. Don't worry, it gets crazier. I'm only halfway through.
How about that?
So the first thing is like, okay, you're officially freelancers. We're no longer an agency. We don't do salaries. We don't do anything. When you're working, we pay you a boatload of money. That's it. If you're not, you're not. So now I'm like, job security. How do we make sure there's demand? Well, how many people want subscriptions? Right? A lot of people, but I get a lot of messages all the time of like, hey, I just want a couple videos. I want one video. Sam, for example, only really wants one video every couple weeks. He wouldn't come on the platform. So I'm like, I'm just kicking around things. I'm like, how could we make this work? And let me look at my notes because I can see actually me like drawing it real time.
Sounds like, how could we make this on demand? How can we make this one-off projects?
And so I was thinking, and I'm like, okay, what would it look like if we could take on-demand projects? Because that would add so much demand to the marketplace. Because say you're working with My First Million, but then they're like, no, we don't want to work with you anymore. They drop you. If now you can work on-demand projects, like we have that demand, plus demand for subscriptions, we have constant demand, a ton of constant demand. So that just adds to the security.
All right, so our going mission at the end of probably Friday's podcast was anyone with a great idea can have a great video made in one click. Mm-hmm. The subscription model is anyone with great ideas all the time can have a constant source of great video. And who has that?
Well, that's what I was thinking.
Fewer.
We're trying to get to 2,000 customers. Under the subscription model, it kind of changed. But I'm like, are there 2,000 consistent creators? Maybe, but we have to pretty much get all of that market. So I think on demand is just this massive, I don't know what it is. I think I told you before, I'm like, I think it's like 80% of the market would be on demand stuff. I don't know if that's true, but I think it's a lot. So I was thinking, like, okay, how could we make on demand work? Like, well, what have we learned through working on this agency? The only thing that works is when you set a deadline. You're like, here's Parkinson's. This is the deadline. The video is going to be done by then. You get this video in X amount of days. That's how we ensure there's not a million revisions, because it's like, hey, you got to factor that in on the customer side. This has to be done in 3 days. How do I make sure you get like one round of revisions? Just make it possible.
And creatives need that too.
Right. Otherwise, they're just going to fucking kill themselves for 10 weeks on one video. So I was like, okay, what are we working with now? Well, we tell them 3 days. 3 days you get, and you're going to get, by day 2, you're going to get one revision, and then the 3rd day you get the final product. Like, oh, that's interesting. And we have the team, they're amazing. We'd have to figure out, like, how do we make sure they convey the project well, but we can solve that. That's just an easy problem. So I'm like, 3 days. And I'm thinking through the economics of that. And I'm like, what's like an interesting offer if I want to make a video? Because before I told you, I'm like, what if we just did $100 a video and it took us like a day to do? But I'm like, that sounds like a hassle, a lot of like back and forth videos. What if we just did $1,000, one video, 3 days? Like, that's a nice offer. But then I'm like, oh wait, what are we charging per week? Oh, we're charging $1,000 a week. So now you come in and you're like, oh, I want an awesome video. Do you want to pay $1,000 for this video or get $1,000 for the subscription every week? And now it's just such a beautiful offer of, oh, it's either, do you want one video? It's $1,000. Do you want the subscription? Oh, it's $1,000 a week. It's the most no-brainer offer.
Hey, don't break my brain now. And what do we want there?
Okay, here's what happens.
Right? Like, yeah.
So here's what happens, right? That's the offer. Like, maybe that doesn't fucking get you all stoked like it does for me. But
no, it does. It does. I'm just like, what's better from our perspective? A week of certainty or 5 projects? Both are good.
Here's the beauty of the math, okay? I'm just simplifying everything. I'm like, all that I've learned about pricing and like making offers is just make it as simple caveman as possible. So on the client side, or I'm so used to saying client. On the customer side, it's easy. I'm going to spend either $1,000 for this video or I get $1,000 a week. And it's like a super easy decision. Do you want one video or a bunch? That's easy. It gets rid of our problem of like people signing up for 1 week and canceling. Because it's like, dude, you wanted one video, just it's the same price. Why wouldn't you just
right.
And then, so I'm thinking economics wise, how would this be super simple for any of the team? Like, let's just be like, hey, you work on it, you get 50% as an animator and editor.
Okay.
So I had the animator pricing at 1,000, and then editor pricing, I think 700 works better than 800. It's a little bit better. So I had that like $700 a video with an editor, 700 per week with an editor. Which one do you want? Then say we go back on our side, it's like, okay, an animator makes $500 either a video or a week. Right? So
yes.
Same thing with an editor. It's either $350 for a video or $350 for a week.
What's the difference in output? If a video takes 3 days, or you can have that editor for a week, what's the difference?
Well, it takes 3 days, so you'd get an extra 2 days if you subscribe. But you have to subscribe to... so one thing I'm changing... So it's only monthly billing. We do monthly billing if you do the subscription. Or 6
okay.
months. So you can no longer pay week to week.
Okay.
I forgot to say that. So you have to sign up for like a $4,000+ package in that case.
Yeah, I'm like... Okay. So it's the one-off project, which the unit economics sound good, or you do $1,000 per week, which is really you signing up for a month.
Right.
Which is also good. Okay, I got you.
So that makes sense. Now I look back, and it's like, now it's an interesting thing of like, if you're an animator, and you're making $500 a week, because we split it 50-50, just to keep everything simple, and it seems pretty fair when it's 50-50. Like, we bring the demand, you bring the product. Now, $500 a week, you're making over $2,000 a month in a subscription if you're working with someone.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. That's far more, that's 50% more than they're making right now, on average.
But if you're doing one-offs?
But say, for example, you're working with MFM, but then MFM drops you on the 3rd week. And now you're like, oh, fuck. And there's no demand for subscriptions because we haven't found someone new. But we have a bunch of one-off projects. You go do one-off projects. If you did a month of one-off projects, which is effectively a work week is like 20, a work month is like 21 working days. Are you following the math?
Is this something like $10,000 or $15,000?
No. It's 21 working days divided by 3 days per video. You can do 7 one-off videos at $500.
Wait, but you could also do a video a day if you're crazy.
Right. Point being, it's up to 3 days.
And make $500 a day.
Up to 3 days. So if you're coy and you rip it in 2 days, you could make $5,000 this month.
That's what I'm saying.
If you do it in 1 day, somehow, I don't know how the fuck that would be possible. It'd probably take at least a day and a half. You could make fucking almost $10,000.
Yeah, right. That's nuts.
So this is of our, like, everyone's incentivized to work. I just want to fucking work like crazy. We have so much demand because we're taking the one-offs, we're taking the subscriptions. Demand's always there. Everyone's going to make more money. Sure, there's that risk, but we have so much demand that kind of mitigates all of the risk.
So what's better for the animator? Does it depend on their risk aversion? Whether they want a subscription?
You're like,
yeah.
We have offers come in, subscriptions and one-offs. What do you want to do?
Won't most people want one-offs?
It depends how many we have. Like, maybe we don't have as many one-offs, and you're like, oh, it's kind of a trickle of one-offs. Because you might, like, the 3,500 is assuming you're only doing one-offs. But who knows if we have a constant stream of one-offs? I don't know. We haven't, like, opened the floodgates to that yet. But I'm already talking to someone on Twitter who's asking about, like, just a few videos. Sam Parr would buy this. He's like, I didn't
DM that guy. You told me to DM. Is that who it is?
Oh, yeah, I DM'd him. It's fine. I think he was on my Twitter. I just got it.
I don't go in there. I do not go in there.
But the risk is so much lower because if anyone drops you, you just jump back in the marketplace, and ideally we're going to have either subscriptions available, one-offs available, or both at the same time, and you can pick what you want to do. And if you need more money, the rule is like you can't do both at the same time. But yeah, if you need to make more money that month, it probably makes more sense to just do one-offs. Like, oh, I have birthdays coming up, just do a lot more one-offs, and you instantly, and like do them better and faster, and you can make
better and faster. You could work for 2 weeks and be off the other half of the month. Right. You can work as much or as little as you want and still make a really good living.
So I've just been stoked because from the customer side, pricing super simple, We offer everything you'd ever need with a video, whether one-off or subscription. You get the best service, and from the
it's kind of like Uber surge pricing. It gets drivers when they see there's a surge, right? There's limited supply.
No, because then we would be raising prices. It doesn't quite translate.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, for example, with Don, I told him this, and there's a wait list. So this is essentially it. It's like you're asking for a ride, but we don't have it to offer. So I'm thinking like we almost have surge pricing for us. It's like, Don, we can get you on the top of the wait list, but you're gonna have to pay $1,500 a month instead of $1,000 or a week. Fucking all that.
But you think about the cold start problem of networks. It's like if Don can't get, like you said earlier in this podcast, if Don can't get an editor within, I don't know if it's 10 minutes or 2 days or immediately, whatever it is, he's gonna leave.
Right.
You know.
Right. So that's why I'm like he might be willing to pay more. Like it's kind of like why communism sucks, because they don't allow surge pricing. So like you go wait in lines like crazy in Cuba because everyone has the same like there's no way to show that you value this more. You can't be like, let me jump the line because my mom is dying and I need to get in the hospital, versus like, oh, I bit my lip. Bit my lip is in front of the line. Your mom's never going to get in. Like, that's the problem.
All equal.
So here it's like, Don, how bad do you need it? Like, you can pay more. We have this, like, jump to the top of the wait list thing.
And you did that?
No, but I'm thinking about it. I wanted to talk to you about it first. Kind of one thing I heard that was interesting was Uber got a lot of hate for surge pricing, and you no longer see it because they don't really vocalize it. It's more like you just see the price and you don't know if it's surged or not. But they would have gotten less hate if they also had discount pricing. So, oh, there are a fuckload of drivers out there. So instead of being $10, now it's $7 to get to your destination. And they didn't give you like, oh, you have the like discount. And they only had the surge side. So it just seemed like you were losing. But you never won. There's actually...
that's interesting.
Reading Freakonomics, I think, way back in the day, like freshman year of college, they talked about how movie theaters, they always charge the same price no matter what day of the week. And it's like, dude, demand is so much higher for movies on a Saturday night, a Friday night, versus on a Tuesday midday. What's cool is like no one ever changed it because then like devalue the video or the movie, and people were weird about that. And it's like, no, in Miami, it was like $2 to see a movie on a Tuesday. And Matt would always go and see movies. And it's sick.
Yeah, and they'll fill the theater on a Tuesday.
Right.
And it'll all come out in a wash.
Yeah. So...
Or it'll be more profitable, actually.
What it felt to me was kind of like we're doing physics. And I'm like, I think I got to a fundamental law of business here. Like, of the marketplace.
That's so cool.
We got to something fundamental. It's so simple. It's $1,000. We split it 50-50. And boom, it's $1,000. It's just like, whether it's one-off or whether it's per week.
My question at scale is, does this break down when you leave the Philippines? This specific pricing, I guess.
I mean, you just have like, hey, it's fucking twice as much because you're getting the U.S. The same model makes sense.
Yeah, same model. Fuck yeah. Good shit, Pop. That was the plane ride?
That was the plane ride. Like you said, you got to make sure like when people get in, they get immediate customer service. But I was thinking like, oh, someone buys. Well, what I liked about, was it Upwork or Fiverr? I forget which one. But I was texting you as I went through the flow. It's like the first step in the flow is you pick which video you want, whether it's like the animated one, and we'll show you an example. So it's super obvious what that looks like. And then an edited one, which is just like clean, simpler graphics. You pick your video. And the next question is like, do you have one video or do you want to subscribe for many more? It's like both $1,000, boom, boom, boom. And then from there, you pay, and it's like, hey, your person's waiting on the other side. It's like, you pay now, person's waiting, we'll figure out all the project details after. Like, make sure you just get the money up front. Versus other places, I think Upwork, it was like, I'll list all the project details, all this stuff before you pay. Like, no, get them to pay. Now they're sunk costed in. They're like, oh, I'm obviously going to do it, versus you're losing them before. It was silly, their model was like that.
Lyft does this. They're like, you pay, and they're like, we've almost found your driver. We're going to find your driver in 3 minutes and 52 seconds. Don't go anywhere. We're about to find your driver. And it's like, you can do the kind of back-end matchmaking just after they've paid, and they'll feel better about it.
Right. That's why I'm like, the way we should do it is we just have when someone buys an automatic email, it's like boom, 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 from creative@clip.co or something. It's like, hey, we're matching you, or just from whatever it is. But then you, me, Tony, we all have access, and we hop in email right away and like, hey, we're matching you. But why'd you buy? Like, we ask them some questions, and it's like immediately back and forth, or within whatever 5 minutes or something, because we're all like getting messages. It's just like beautiful customer service experience. And then we know the team's going to deliver on the back end, and they're incentivized to do an amazing job, to do it Parkinson's faster. Because we're like, hey, we're paying you $1,000 or $500 for this in up to 3 days. However long it takes you, make sure it's awesome. And sort of the infinite game side of this is, hey, one thing to realize is a lot of one-off people will either get more one-offs, sort of the way you did it with the VFX, or they'll subscribe to you, which is awesome. So it's not like, if you're AJ, for example, you're not going to fuck the customer on this one-off video and like do a shitty job, because you're like, oh, they're going to come back to the platform and request me. So I want to make sure I do a good job so that I get more business from them in the future.
The cool thing about being subscribed to too is you're getting paid, and you might not have work 40 hours a week, right? Like, the one-offs demand that you produce a one-off in 3 days. But sometimes people subscribe to lock in an editor, and then...
Think of it this way, though. If you're the editor, you want to do a good job. Because if you get dropped, you suddenly go from making $500 a week to nothing. It's like,
right.
I don't want to get dropped. And now it's baked in. We don't have to like survey, well, we should, but we don't have to like say, oh, the customer gave you a 3-star review, so we're not going to pay you this bonus. It's like, no, money talks. Just like, do they want to hire you continuously or not? If they don't, you don't get paid anything. So you have an insane incentive to keep them happy. Because if you don't, you drop to the bottom of like say there are requests, like you get dropped by a client, you're going to be on the bottom of the totem pole for the team in terms of if requests come in.
And on one-offs, there's not always, you might not always be able to get a one-off back to back to back to back to back, right?
Right. There's, maybe 5 people on the team are waiting for a one-off. Well, if you just got dropped by a subscription, you're not going to be at the top of the list. You're going to drop to the bottom.
Okay. So I'm like, if money is my goal, I'm like, I'm just going to try and do as many one-offs as possible. But actually, I might not be able to get slotted into a one-off all the time. So subscription might be better. And you want to perform in the subscription, so you stay in the subscription.
Here's the thing with the one-off is people can request you. So you're like, I got a one-off with AJ. He was amazing. I fucking loved him. I don't want to risk anyone else. Give me AJ again. And then you don't have to worry about that queue that's like random shit. You just get directly, you're just like guaranteed that work.
But they keep requesting AJ for these one-off projects. Isn't that better for AJ than them coming back and subscribing to AJ? Because he gets paid more for one-off projects. It depends
how many. Maybe they're like, okay, let's do the math. We need like 1.5 one-offs a week, or one in like a little over one, or we just want like more flexibility. Because sometimes AJ isn't available. He's already working on a project. We can't get him. How do we guarantee we get AJ? I'll just subscribe. And then AJ is like, okay, I'm subscribed. It just depends. It depends if he wants to take that on or not. And they're paid over $2,000. So it's like, it's a good deal. Why take the risk of doing a bunch of one-offs and then worrying about queues and stuff?
Shit.
But there's still the incentive not to fuck people, because they might subscribe to you and you get more security, or they might just request you for more one-offs in the future.
That's sick.
I know, dude. That's why I told you I was pacing on the plane. I'm like, I need to tell someone about this. I think this is cracked every code. Like, now there's no excuse for us not to do an insane job with clipped for video. It's just,
why is that?
It's like the model is there. I think this model will work. We're gonna test it again. Back to like our market conversation. We're gonna test it like crazy. But we have so many people asking us. We're just like, hey, this is the offer. This is what it's $1,000 for video. $1,000 for a week. If you want to subscribe, it's only $700. I changed the economics there, but we don't have to talk about it on the pod. So the beauty is, now I'm going to go to our model that we already made. I'm going to change the structure of everything, and we can see economically what it works out to. But the beauty of this is now that we have the one-offs, we're going to be taking in a lot more money. Because now it opens us up to a lot more. Like before,
right, it's a double-edged sword. A lot more risk and a lot more onboarding. But that's okay.
I know, that's why we have to make sure the systems are good.
Yeah.
But I think it's the Parkinson's thing we talk about with the 3 days. I think that solves a lot of our problems, as long as people are okay with like how to interact creatively with.
Oh, you know what's interesting? And then you had something, but I asked David Sachs many months ago what he would pay for like the videos we're making for him, these little clips, and he said $1,000. That's interesting to me.
I think that's just like, for this quality, that makes sense. That's
the premium people, yeah.
Right. It just fucking like everything to it makes so much sense to me, and that's why I'm so stoked. It's like, hey team, we're no longer a company, we're a marketplace. You can come on that. We're gonna pay you a shitload of money. When we put up job posts, we can put up a post that's like, make up to $3,000, $3,500 a month, even more. You could make up to $5,000. Like, I don't know what we quote, what's realistic, but the offer is so much more appealing because now we hit a different side of the market in the Philippines.
Yeah, you quote, if someone did a one-off every 3 days, that's the maximum. You quote that.
They could do it every 2 days.
Yeah, but then they might get disenchanted.
Okay, that's fair.
Right, you want to satisfy a little bit? Huh.
Yeah, so basically get paid up to $3,500 a month. And that's literally doubling the offer. It's more than doubling the offer that we currently have up.
And
I guess it's almost.
And that is like a very healthy amount of work the team has decided to like stab off burnout.
3 days was the I can do this forever amount of time.
Yeah. So now you're going to make twice as much money doing something that's like, as a creative, based on what our team says, like really doable for the long run.
And the beauty is we take no risk.
That's nutty.
We take zero risk.
Because we're not paying people. We're only paying people.
We only pay them when we get paid first. We get paid first, and then at the end of the week, we pay them.
How about that? Hey, where's this podcast going then? What do you mean? Is that the route? Well, I thought this was a different podcast. Is that podcast one? You have solved economics. You have gone to the first principles of supply and demand.
We got to the first principles of supply and demand and incentives. Principal agent problem. I think we solved it here. We have to convey it to the team, but I'm not worried about that part because the money is so enticing and the demand will be there. It already is there. I think we can navigate
And
that.
so is the next podcast episode that people need to subscribe for. What happened last we were trying to communicate this to the team at about 9, 10, 11 p.m. in the evening when we got a little loopy.
Oh, okay. So yeah, you're right. The next podcast is going to talk about that. That's like the fun part. We'll get to it.
Vision.
Podcast is smart nonsense. Everything smart nonsense, from the podcast to the media agency to the marketplace, like what it is today, and we'll talk about that at the end.
And how we're gonna fix the world.
Yeah. So basically, I figured out the model to fix the world. That's why.
How about that? Subscribe, folks, and we will see you for the next episode of Smart Nonsense.